Yeah, baby.
Howdy, 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 and welcome to the Snort Cast. My name is Nguyen, and I am the host and creator of the biggest snorting show, live streaming show that's kind of happened in the pandemic. And today is quite a significant day in Melbourne. We are finally, on Wednesday, we've just gotten news that we are leaving. Okay, all I'm going to say is we're getting freedom. Freedom is happening. And if you are joining us, my guest and I, we are going to be talking about freedom within a pandemic. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to anyone who's been part of the SnortCast, because the SnortCast was started during the lockdown here in Melbourne in July. And I've been so grateful for all your support for joining in and being part of this. And I've been so grateful for all the snorters who I've interviewed to come onto the show and share why they do comedy, how they got into comedy, and how you can apply comedy to your work. And as you know, I would love to find out from you, where are you watching from? I always do this every time I do these shows, because I want to know where is this show heading to, and if this show is needed for a snort. So please, if you would like to tell me, #replay, #live, and tell me the city that you're snorting from. We're also on all social media platforms, so just pop onto YouTube, Instagram, Facebook at the SnortCast, #the SnortCast. You will see all our interviews that are on there. And thank you so much to the Patreon community who allow me to do this every single week. Your support monthly helps. And if you would like to be a joyful Patreon supporter, all you need to do is put some money in to allow me to do this, which is $13.52 a month. That's all it costs, and it allows me to run this machine called the SnortCast. And I'm so lucky to have my guest, who's I'll be introducing very soon. But please tell us where you're watching from. Tell us where you're snorting. I'm snorting from Melbourne, Australia. Where are you snorting from? And our guest is snorting from Melbourne as well. And I've known her I've met her, I think it was last year at Comedy Festival. After watching a show, we met with other friends at Max Watts, and we'll talk about Comedy Festival, because she had she was meant to perform her solo show this year, and this is a great thing about Jordan, is that she didn't originally start in comedy. She's actually a music theatre trained actor and performer who just thought, hang on a minute, I'm funny, let's try comedy. And so in 2018, she did Raw Comedy. She was a state finalist for Raw Comedy, and last year sold out her show Inexcusable, and had a show on this year, and also a double show called The Breast of the Fest. I think I got that right. Fest of the Breast of the Fest. I think it's one of those two. And we'll talk more about producing and making work happen. She also has 2 podcasts which you can check out, which are Sex and the Sex and the Sex, a Sex and the City podcast. If you are a Sex and the City fan, yes, I've got the collection. And also PopGays, a queer pop culture podcast, which she has collaborated during a pandemic. So I'm very excited to bring on our guest, but before we bring her on, let's have a snap of her work, and introducing Jordan Barr.
Jordan Barr. Hi guys. I'm pretty forgetful, so I reckon it's a miracle that I haven't lost a limb to TSS by now. That's toxic shock syndrome, so you get that when you forget about that tampon you put in a few days ago. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You get a dank smelling pussy for a couple of weeks, but worst case scenario, you will lose a limb. I've been treating tampons like a cafe treats day-old croissants. At the end of an 8-hour shift, I'm like, whack a bit of ham and cheese in there. She'll be right. Toast it. They'll never know. Thanks. I'll take another request. What would you like me to see?
Hips don't lie.
My hips are in the court of law. Giving evidence in a really infamous case. There's been a lot of media around it, and my hips are not allowed to lie. So therefore, my hips don't lie. We all remember that song. Shall I sing one more? So I am
Before she sings one more, we welcome Jordan Barr.
Hi. Hello. Oh my gosh, so weird watching myself just then.
Oh, it is the weirdest thing to do, isn't it, as an artist?
Yeah. Always.
You don't want proof of your performance.
No, I want it done. I want to bury it. I want to move on. I'm not one of those people who can watch themselves back. Although I found out that Emma Stone doesn't watch any of the movies that she's in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is like kind of crazy. Yeah.
Ouch. And she's an Oscar winner too.
Yeah, it's like you've been in some good movies.
Oh, what's that woman who was in Harry Potter, the head mistress of Hogwarts?
Professor McGonagall, that lady?
Yeah.
Judy.
Yes.
No, it's not Judy Dench, but it's
not
Maggie Margulies.
Maggie something. It's Maggie something.
It's there.
Yeah, that's there. She's in Downtown Abbey, and she's never watched any of it. She just hasn't had time to. But Jordan, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
And can I, we're celebrating because we people don't know. I think everyone around the world has just been functioning normally, but in our state of Victoria here in the city of Melbourne, we have been in like this kind of lockdown. How are you feeling?
Good. I feel good today. It's been a hectic lockdown. It's been really hard, but it's also been so like to get the if anybody doesn't know, we got the case numbers today and it was 0. To get that after like months of being like close to 1,000 cases a day for such a small population, it felt really good. Like we accomplished something. I feel like there's towards the end of it, we were getting really, really wriggly, I think, Melburnians, but definitely for a while there was a sense of solidarity. Like we're doing the country a favor closing down. It would have been easy to open up. It would have been easy to let it go, but to lock down the way we did, it was hard, but we're seeing the results. And
yeah, we are.
Yeah,
we are. Thank goodness. But we're not here to talk about our pandemic numbers and donuts. We are here to talk about you. So, Jordan, if you could tell us in 4 sentences who you are.
Okay. Here we go. I am Jordan Barr, full stop. I am a comedian / writer / commercial actor. I really love nature, even though I don't spend enough time in it. And I should go see more live music.
You will.
That's me. Yeah, I will. Now I have an excuse that every year I'm like, I'll go see more live music this year. I don't know why that's such a defining in my life.
Well, did you hear that Hillsong bought Festival Hall?
I am not ready to talk about it. It is. I just don't. Oh my God. Literally. Why has he got to have everything, guys? know.
Why
It
does
just makes
God need to have everything?
exactly. It's such a great venue. Like, I'm sure there are good people who go to Hillsong, but there are great people who go to other live music venues. And I think of all the great shows that I've seen at Festival Hall, and I hope that they can keep coming. And it's just such a shame, you know. But anyway.
Your partner, Kayla's online. She said Maggie Smith.
Yes, that's it. Who did we say? We were like, what did we say? We're like, her name's like Frankie. Like, we had no idea.
But that just reminded me about great shows that you've seen. You saw Lizzo at the Forum.
Yes, that was amazing.
When was that?
When was it? It was this year. It was this year because she was really she was fundraising for the bushfires, and she volunteered at Foodworks. She went to check out Foodworks in Footscray, not Foodworks. Oh my goodness,
Food Bite.
you know the one? Yeah. And it was amazing, and it was so empowering and so great. I mean, like, obviously, it's a bit of a cliche for me to go see this like incredible Black female performer as a white person and be like, I feel empowered. But it was a really electric feeling within the audience, and people really love her, and it's beyond fandom. It's beyond like idolization. It's like a deep appreciation and a deep care for Lizzo as well, and for what she's given to so many people, which is great.
Oh, yes. Yeah. The moment you said live music, it just took me back to what it feels like to be in a venue with live music and live audience, and
I know,
you know, so nostalgic.
I've never wanted sweaty bodies around me before, and now I'm like, I need it. Although, to be fair, I feel like we romanticize these like social interactions now. If we really went straight back into it, you'd be so anxious. Like, you'd just be who's touched who.
We'll be all wearing raincoats that are sanitized.
Yes,
yes,
absolutely.
And thanks for joining the show today, the SnortCast. And let's launch into one of my first questions I ask my guests, which is, what was your first memory of comedy in your life?
In my life?
Yeah, like, when did it tap in and say, hey, I'm funny?
I think, okay, this is such a funny, tragic story, but I remember I injured myself because my little brother was crying, and I figured out, and my dad had left the room because he was giving us dinner. He left the room. My little brother started crying because he was upset that dad wasn't there. And I remember I went to the couch where we had like wooden arms on the couch, and I just started, this is so horrific, I would like bang my head on it, and Connor would laugh and he wouldn't cry anymore. So I just kept banging my head on it whenever he was crying so that he would laugh. And then my dad came in, and then I had to go to the hospital and get stitches because I had banged my head so much that it, like, I'd caused myself an injury. I mean, such a metaphor.
You're a clown. Oh,
truly.
Wow.
Yeah, actually, that is very clowny, of just being like, I figured out the thing that made you laugh, so I'm just going to keep doing that.
Oh, wow.
It's very funny. But I guess as well, like, just I moved schools a lot in primary school, and I figured out that if you just were a wallflower for a bit and you figured out everybody's what they enjoyed, you could become the funny person in the group if you needed to be. Which is cool.
And that's a skill, isn't it? It's a super. I've spoken to some guests that have been on the show, and it comes from the childhood. There's something like I moved school in grade 3, and I remember you kind of have to assess everyone because you're the new kid, and you have to figure out how you fit in, and then you do the funny thing, and you go, oh, that works. I fit in now. Do you feel that that's been how you've been able to fit in with people?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, I think it's also like accepting when, like, you're not going to be the funniest person there. Like, you feel like, well, if this is like the kind of humor that everybody loves, that's not where I excel. Even as a child, God, I should have just relaxed. But like, you kind of being like, well, in this group I can provide comedy, in this group I can provide like being a good listener or something like that. I think it always came back to comedy for me, and I'd sneak it in some ways because I love it. And I love laughing with friends. But I think you're right. It is about like listening and assessing the situation.
Which you do as a stand-up comedian quite well.
Yeah, sometimes I'm sure there's definitely been times where I have not and then plowed through and just
ignore the silence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially gigs in Melbourne. I'm like, I'm not getting paid. I just need to get it done.
Exactly. Just get off the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And to our snorters who are watching, thank you for joining the show. We have, let's see, we've got someone who's just doing Snort Barr. Thank you very much. Kayla's like, woohoo. We've got Singapore. Thanks for joining. Another Singaporean.
Hello.
Where else we got? North Carolina. Good morning, waking up. Thanks for joining. We've got Chile. We've got Brazil. Thanks for joining the show, peeps. And if you have a question for Jordan, pop it in the comments while we speak. And I do want to know from the audience, you know, who inspires your comedy? Who is your favorite comedian? And Jordan, who inspires your comedy? Who inspired you when you first started? Like you did raw comedy in 2018.
Yeah.
Like who was inspiring you to get into do stand up, and then who inspires you now?
It's kind of the same comic. When I always loved comedy, and I realized I was actually discussing this with my housemate Anna Wolf, who is also a comedian. I realized recently that when I was a teenager, I was definitely a comedy nerd. Like I knew stand-up comics and stuff around Melbourne when most people knew like bands and stuff like that. And like I was like obsessed with UK comedy because I'm a nerd. And then around, I think it was 2017. Yeah, it would have been. It was the start of 2017, and it was just after Trump had been inaugurated, and they had that that media dinner. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah,
the White House. Yes,
the big conference thing, and they have a comedian come in, and that's the year that Michelle Wolf came in. And I loved it. And then there were a couple people who sent it to me and said, this kind of reminds me of you. And I was like, that's very nice. And then I think from there, I'd kind of been umming and ahhing, as most, especially I feel like female or queer comics do. You and ah about going into comedy so much, and then you finally do it, and then you're in it, you know? And that's kind of what happened with me. It's like I did it on a whim. I decided to do raw comedy in 2018. And then I've just been doing it ever since. Like, if you have a knack for it, if you enjoy it, then once you start, you're in it in a way.
And I did you see her last year when she came here?
Yes, it's so good. Did you get
sold out? I didn't get a ticket.
It's the same show on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, she does the same show, and it's because she does this great thing where she treads the line. Like, you don't know. She'll open up with something that you're like, I don't know about that. But then she brings you around, and not in a recruiting kind of way, in like you realize what her point is, and it's very good. She does this great bit on otters, and I love her.
Talking about otters, we'll talk more about otters. I want to talk about Michelle Wolf. Because I love her stuff. What is it that makes her comedy exciting for you? Like what is it?
I think it's a tension thing. I think Hannah Gadsby talks about it in the net a lot, and that was also great because I watched that and I was like, oh, that's what comedy is, creating. I hadn't thought about it in that way. Yeah, it's that creating tension and releasing it, and that's exactly what Michelle does. It's really exciting because she will open up with something, or she'll say something that's like, but then she twists it in a similar vein to like Sarah Silverman as well. I was actually talking about how Sarah Silverman found out in her comedy special. She talks about how she found out that sperm has nostrils. And so then she was like, well, then they're a living thing. Like they can they have a sense of smell, so we should protect all sperm. And she became like a pro-life advocate, but for sperm specifically. And I thought that was like, I really like when people sort of take these right-wing or conservative views that do really harm people and then twist them into something really interesting and for the benefit of more. Yeah.
And I do agree with you about Michelle. Like she steers you to one area, but then she's actually coming back to something else. And I just really enjoy her skill, how she uses comedy, like the skillfulness that she applies. It's just not like, here's a story and that's it. She just puts all these jigsaws into this one joke.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that appeals to me about her is her willingness to accept that she's like a flawed person as well. I think when I see comics, like you don't want to see a comic who's up there being like, I'm a really nice person, because it turns out they're just Ellen DeGeneres and they're a bad person. Like, truly.
You just remind me one of my like a joke that I really love of hers, which is when she talks about having sex and wanting to know men's sizes. And then I just love how she does it. She's like, you meet someone and you see his penis, and then you see how big it is. She's like, no, like there's just one. she speaks in her comedy. It's not like like so there with you as if she's she's in that. Yeah, it's just wonderful. So yeah, it reminded me of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's always like, I think she got heavily criticized for that speech at the White House. I want to say commencement. It's like something, the press. Oh my God. It'll come to us as soon as I leave this podcast. I'll be like, I remember what it is. But she has this joke about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and she was like, she uses her lies as a smoky eyeshadow to make a great smoky eyeshadow. And like everybody was so angry at her after that speech. She didn't do anything except tell the truth. Like that's what she did. And that's why it was so funny and so like jarring and refreshing. Yeah. And everybody was coming at her being like, well, you call yourself a feminist, but you came after Sarah Huckabee Sanders makeup. And she was like, no, I complimented her on her smoky eye. I just said that she lies, which you can't, like, that's it. That's the truth.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And, exactly. You know, you were just talking about Otto's, about Michelle Wolf's Otto. You worked at an aquarium.
Yes.
And I love your joke about penguins.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you do hear something similar about sea animals. I really want to talk to you about, you know, inspiration for comedy, because you've used your workplace to, you know, an observational workplace comedy. How do you do it? How do you, when you're looking at the penguins, do you go, oh, that's a good joke? Or what instigates that, that motion?
Well, I have been doing the Penguins talks for so, someone's just said it's the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's it. Thank you, Brian. But I had been doing, I guess, because I did the talks and tours at the aquarium, I'd been doing little penguin sets for so long before I realized that, I could do this as comedy. Like, I had been using the same stories, the same jokes. Obviously, like, there's a little, like, edge and something a bit more adult in my comedy, but I'm still spitting out the same facts. I think that the benefit that I have with this newfound animal knowledge, because I'm not a marine biologist or a zoologist, I just kind of fell into this great job. But the benefit is that people are just wowed by animal facts. Like, that's kind of, people love to hear stories about animals and about penguins, that when you throw in a couple jokes there, the laughter is so much more joyful, and like, it's because people have enjoyed the whole experience. The joke itself might not be that great. Like, the actual punchline might not be great, but people really love hearing about animals.
Yes, I think you've given a tip for everyone, is to put an animal in that joke. But it's like David Attenborough. We find so endearing because he works with animals, and you know, your number 4, one of your 4 sentences was nature. There's something so natural about nature. When you think and talk about it, you just feel at ease. Yeah, so that might be a good psychology to writing jokes.
Yeah, that's true. Everybody write this down for me. I'll use it later. Like, I think it depends on the spot. Sometimes you have 5 minutes in a rowdy pub where they didn't know that they were getting comedy. You know, someone's eating a Parma and then suddenly the room runner's on stage with a microphone and they're like, oh no, I'm consuming stand-up on a Wednesday night. But so those ones you just got to make sure that you've got your best set ready to go. But then there are other gigs like the Snort comedy that you hosted early this year before everything got shut down, and like other comedy gigs where you've got a little bit more time, or there's an audience who's more willing to like go along the ride with you, and you can actually start just like talking. And I think that's where I feel like maybe that's where you shine as well. But I feel particularly that's where I can sort of get the comedy on side, get the audience more on side with what's happening, and they get to know you, and then the stories themselves and the punchlines become funnier, which is always really nice.
I'm just going to double check with you. How is my audio? Is it streaming well for you on your side?
It's a little bit choppy. I can understand what you're saying, but it is a little bit choppy.
Okay.
Can the audience hear it okay?
No, you're very choppy on my end. So
Okay. Let me try something. I think I can actually plug something into my computer. Give me 2 seconds. It might actually help.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
And while people are tuning in, I have a question for Jordan. Please ask a question. We would love to, you can pop a question and ask Jordan anything, penguins, trying to figure out what the White House correspondence was. So please ask any questions. And while Jordan sets it up, I am just going to double check on my end.
Okay. I've just plugged something in that might help us.
Yeah.
Great.
So Kayla's saying, I'm choppy. Thanks, Kayla. We'll figure it out as we go through this. I have another question, which was diversity in comedy. It might be actually my end because my computer has just had
Yeah, I think I've just lost you just then. I was keeping up till a certain point. Oh, hi guys, it's just me. Hello. Welcome to SnortCast. I actually started snorting very randomly when laughing, maybe in the last 2 years. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I have a deviated septum slightly, but everybody's septum deviates actually. So if you sniff in on one side of your nose, block one side, so that side's a bit blocked for me, and then try the other. That one's a lot clearer. Tomorrow morning, my clear side will probably be a bit more blocked than my right. So what happens is throughout the day, your septum is going to deviate naturally. But if you find that every single time you sniff in, you experience the same side being blocked. So right now my left side is a little bit more blocked. It looks like my right, but it's my left. If it's always blocked, then I should probably go to an ear, nose and throat therapist because I have a permanently deviated septum. And that usually means that you snore. Do you guys have any questions or anything for me at the moment? I hope that Diana's going to come back. I'll just see if she's messaged me. Okay, so Yanni asked, Jordan, how do you practice your material? Straight with the audience, or is it mirror, mirror on the wall? Good question. So it's a bit of both. Mirror, mirror on the wall, except the mirror is my partner. and I run jokes by them, or I run jokes by my housemates and my family. But most of the time I find the joke on stage, which is a high risk, high risk, low reward situation. So sometimes I might try some comedy and then I'm working on the fly when I'm on stage, and that's great sometimes, but sometimes it's not that much of a hit. I usually try to have, especially if I'm going to try some stuff on stage, I usually try to have the first minute and the last minute sorted, which gives me usually about 3 minutes to muck around if I've got 5 minutes. But especially when I'm trying new things, I usually try to work it out on stage. I'm not much for planning out comedy, because when I get nervous or anxious, that's when the comedy comes out, which is, you know, a disaster. I'm just looking at my phone to see. Oh, Diana said stay there and entertain. Hello. Amanda, I can see the comments. Hello. So someone, I just was chatting away.
This has happened to me twice already. I'm glad you stayed on the edge. Thanks, Brian. Brian's just wrote, living on the edge. We are. This is definitely live, and it sounds like I need better internet on my end.
You sound crystal clear right now, though. You sound so good.
So good. Thank you. And if you have a question for Jordan, I've lost the questions that we had before. So if you have a question for Jordan, please pop it in the Q&A in the comments, and we can get back to it. And Jordan, I want to ask you about diversity in comedy. You are part of a group of women called Breasts of the Fest.
Yes. Great name.
Very good name. Can you tell us more about that and why you, these women all came together to perform at the comedy festival? What was the idea?
So the Breast of the Fest was started a few years ago. I think the first one was 2018. And I remember I was doing my first solo show then, but that was before I started doing stand-up. That was when I was kind of doing more cabaret stuff, which I don't shy away from now, but I just think that I'm better suited to stand-up. You got to try things before you figure out what works for you. So I knew of it, and I knew that the comics in it were great. And then a couple of years later, one of the women who runs it, Catherine Allen, who's a great Melbourne comic, she reached out to me and said, we're doing it again for 2020. Do you want to be involved? And I said, hell yes. Admittedly, the suit was enticing. I really wanted to get a suit and a white T-shirt with boobs drawn on it. What they didn't tell me is that you have to draw your own boobs. So my boobs looked weird. Every boob is beautiful, but not mine.
Yeah. Like, I have to say, the branding was on point. The branding was on point.
Absolutely. And they've done really well. And I think that the vision is that there's a comedy show called Comedy Zone, which is all about the new upcoming comics in Melbourne, and that happens every year. And I think, don't quote me on this, I'm not revealing anything, but I think that the creators of Breast of the Fest are like hoping that this becomes a similar sort of tradition, that like comedians do this, and that's sort of a great way to showcase them, but also it's a really great platform to be like, these are the best and brightest coming up right now, and to be a part of that is something really special. And I felt really special being asked to be a part of it, and it's a great legacy, I think, as well.
Yeah,
which is cool.
I love the concept. I love seeing women on stage, and it's really great. I think I've met 3 of the women who've done SnortCast comedy, who've come on and done the show. So, we need to, I would say, advocate for more lineups that look like your lineups.
Yeah,
great.
Absolutely. And I think you've got Aurelia coming on Thursday night, right? Yeah. She did Breast of the Fest a couple of years ago, and last year as well, which is great. She's a great comic.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of women on this the next couple of weeks. I'm excited.
So good.
Yeah. I'm actually really proud of my lineup. Like, I look at it, and it is, it's like 60-70% diverse, mixture of men and women of different cultural backgrounds and beliefs. And so I'm excited. And I think it's really important in comedy that we keep pushing that. Like, we don't become complacent.
Absolutely. And you get a better show for it as well. Like aside from all the other like important things about representation, you get a better show when you have more stories and you have more backgrounds and you have more people coming and sharing, because the audience is diverse. And if you don't have, I mean, Summer's audience is not diverse, and we'll talk about that later, but it's really important, and it's for the betterment of everybody involved.
Yeah. And you know, the show didn't go through, your solo show this year didn't go through because of a thing called COVID-19.
Yeah.
How have you had to find lightness in the dark, was what I'm calling it. Like, yeah, how have you brought joy to your life in the last 6 to 7 months?
I'm the worst example of this, because I will always, I find joy in being busy, which is bad. I don't think that's good. I think that you need to, yeah. I think that you need to find other things in your life. I don't think it's representative of a healthy person who's like, I'm booked out for the next 2 weeks. Now I feel relaxed. Like, that's not normal. The interesting thing about the first lockdown is, and I'm sure you felt the same way, for me, March and April are the busiest months of my year. Like, yeah, especially as someone who doesn't make enough money to live off comedy. So I'm working, doing the shows at night, doing gigs, constantly updating the shows. I run on pure adrenaline in April. And then after that, you kind of ease back into something. But my whole body was prepped to have this crazy couple months, and then that was just taken away. And weirdly, it gave me permission to be like, I don't have to stress about this for about a week. For a week, I was like, oh my God, look at this holiday, a staycation. And then the next week, the dread, the existential crisis, all of it. And then I think I got into you just have to keep reminding yourself that you can, finding the light for me was forgiving myself a lot as well. Forgiving myself for being like, today's a bad day. And I think that the benefit of second lockdown for me was that I don't know how you felt about this, Diana, but it was like, I've done this. Like, obviously this one was longer and it was stage 4 rather than stage 3, but it's like, I know what's going to happen. I know that some days I'm going to be like, today's a bad day. And then I'll have 3 days of like, I'm the most incredible, productive person in the world. And then other days where I'm like, I need to have a shower.
Yeah. I had a lot of showers because I've been dreaming about surfing. Like,
yeah. Oh my God, absolutely. But yeah, I think giving permission to not be a star in lockdown, because there are some people who will flourish in these times and who will come up with great comedy and great content. And I'm just coming up with whatever content I can if I feel like it, but I'm also forgiving myself for not feeling super motivated right now. And that's actually been really nice in a really weird way.
And before we go to the Q&A from our audience watching in, thank you for watching, Snorters. What would be your tip for anyone who wants to use comedy? So we heard about using animals in comedy to get people in. What would be another tip to lure people in and have a good laugh?
I would say making sure that you listen. I think that the benefit of doing a music theatre degree, and I also think that if you've done some kind of clowning as well, that helps. But being very aware of your audience, understanding what they're taking in, doesn't mean that you have to change your content at all. Might just change how you deliver it, and be be self-deprecating as best you can, and punch down, because people punch up. Oh my God, don't punch down. Do not punch down. That's not it. That's not it. Imagine after all this, I was like, punch down. No, punch up, guys, punch up, because people want to come together to in comedy to laugh at the things that hold them back. Yeah. And I think that if you want to make people will laugh when they feel comfortable, and when they feel like someone cares about them. Yeah, I think that's it. That's a really loose answer.
No, it's great. No, penguins, animals, and punch.
Yeah.
And watch where you're punching. That's what Jordan
Watch
said.
where you're punching. Watch where you're punching. Absolutely.
We'll go to Q&A from our audience, and we've got a question here from Giannis from Greece. He's asking, Jordan, when they're giving a show, do comedians hope for a less witty audience?
Yes. Look, as someone who doesn't consider themselves very witty, I'm very I'm no like Tim Minchin or these other intelligent comics. I like to have fun with people. So sometimes I wish they weren't that witty, or they don't. I hope they don't expect me to be witty and clever, because I'll probably just get up there and do fart jokes about depression. No.
People doing that.
Yeah, I think it depends on the comic. You want people who understand where you're coming from, particularly if you're doing satire. If you're doing something satirical and they're not on board, or they don't understand that you're being satirical, it can instantly become very uncomfortable.
Yeah, a great question, and thanks for that answer. We've got Amanda Jane asking, do you write for a TV show or similar, or have you considered it?
Definitely considered it. I'm doing my master's at the moment in media, which is just to give me some more skills on what it's like to be on a set and production running and stuff like that, which has been really great. I write for myself mainly, but I've just started writing a web series with a friend of mine, which is very exciting. So, I mean, follow me on Instagram. We're still in very much like the brain circle side of it, but it's a cute and funny series. I'm looking forward to it.
If you need any hot tips, you're looking at one. I can save you a lot of time. Took 5 years too long.
Oh my God. But so 5 years for something so great. FME is such a good show. It's so good.
Yeah. I'm very proud of it. But I learned a lot about the process of it, and I want to help people cut down that process time. So that you can work on projects. That's the idea, that you don't stuck on something for 10 years. And FME has next year's our 10th year at the comedy festival. So crazy. So Giannis has asked another question. Jordan, any piece of advice for people who can't afford to be busy but want to be in style when on lockdown? Giannis is bringing it tonight.
Yeah, wow. Can't afford to be busy. Fair. When you say in style in lockdown, do you mean like just kind of in the right groove? I think that's great. I would say, and this is so tired and worn out, and the first suggestion that everybody said as soon as we went into any lockdown across the world was get up, have a shower, get dressed. Like, and I'm not saying I do this every day. I promise you I'm not. But getting up, getting a shower, get dressed. And for me, I have a dog that I like to walk. If I can walk that dog in the morning, great. But if I can't, if I'm, again, like I said before, if I'm like, today I just want to like watch some TV for a couple of hours and then I'll see how I go. I think you just have to listen to yourself, but some kind of structure is good. Otherwise you're just flouncing around trying to hold on to something. So if it's just getting dressed and having breakfast, great.
Yeah, you're out of bed, you're starting something, starting your day. Yeah,
exactly.
And Ahmed said, Breast of the Fest is a very cool concept. Best of luck with it.
It is. It's a great show.
Vasanath P has said, good to see you both, Diane and Jordan. Good show. And Brian, who's a massive snorter from Ohio. Thanks for joining again, Brian. Space for New Creativity. I'm not sure what reference to, but thank you for that, Brian. Thank you so much for your support. And Jordan, you know, you've got the web series coming up next. What else is on your slate?
I I guess now that officially, as of today, Melbourne's hospitality has started opening up, which means that gigs start opening up. So I better write some jokes. I think that my goal is to finish this web series, and then my goal is to maybe do something for Midsummer, which has been delayed. A lot of the festivals in Australia have been delayed a little bit, especially in Victoria. So I've had more time to think about a show for Midsummer and a show for Comedy Festival. So see how we go.
Yeah. Are you going to bring back Kiss Kiss?
I don't think so. I don't know why. Yeah. Even though I spent, so many hours working on it, it was, maybe because I wrote some songs for it, maybe some songs. How about you? What are you feeling about your show for Comedy Fest?
I have to bring Chasing Keanu Reeves. I need to give birth to it.
We need to see it as well. Like, that's something that people want to see. Yeah. I think that's great. Kiss Kiss was like all about saying goodbye to the planet, and I don't think we're ready.
That is still happening, Jordan.
It's still happening. But maybe not from me. Chasing Keanu Reeves. The world needs to see it, Diana. The world needs to see it.
Yeah, Keanu needs to see it. That's going to happen. But and you mentioned it just before, is that because hospitality is opening and you're allowed to have 20 people inside, just letting know anyone from Melbourne that we are bringing back the SnortCast comedy. So I'll be calling you, Jordan, to do some spotties live.
I crave it. I love that. Great. I can't wait.
You know what's going to happen is that no one will be wanting to get off stage after this 5 or 7 minute sets, and you will have to physically remove them.
They'll be like, "Get me off." So like, I did 2 gigs when the restrictions eased, and one of them I forgot how to do stand up. The first one back, I was like, and I had my notes written on my hand, which is usually just for safety, but I was fully like. Reading my note, it was a shock to the system, but I think I am ready this time.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You just reminded me. Yuvi and I did a gig, and I needed to call her right afterwards and just debrief with her how fucked it was. I needed a debrief. That was how bad. Like, the whole show was bad. That some comedians even turn up. Like, come on, because.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I hear you. The first Zoom gig, like the first time you ever do stand up, really. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jordan, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure. I love it. I love SnortCast.
Yay. So the audience, the snorters come out alive and play. So no, thank you so much. And if you are watching, thank you so much for joining the show. You know where to follow us on the SnortCast, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, # the SnortCast. Thank you to these Patreon supporters who support me and allow me to do this work. Love your stuff. And we'll see you this Thursday for another interview at 9 o'clock. And please check out Jordan's work. She will be back at Comedy or Midsummer next year. Yeah. And we will see you very soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.